Hey everyone, and welcome back to another tier list video. Patch 14.11 is the first major patch of Split 2, and it's been a pretty interesting split so far, with plenty of S tier picks, some champions not having the most amount of fun, and overall a big shift and a ton of change. This patch we're mostly seeing champion buffs and nerfs, along with some AD carry item nerfs and some turret fortification changes to stop all of that lane swapping in pro play. So we're going to start off with the top lane as always, and the champions affected here are Gangplank, Gnar, Nasus, Pantheon, Camille, Singed, Aurelia, Mordekaiser, Ornn and K'Sante. Gangplank has been a bit down in the dumps since the Split 2 patch went live, so he's getting buffs this patch to his HP and armor growth. This definitely is not going to make him broken by any means, but it is a nice little boost which he definitely needs. We've moved him up from C to B for now, but unless there is a crazy OP build that comes around, he won't be moving up from there for the time being. Speaking of OP builds, if you do want to stay up to date with the highest performing Gangplank builds in each patch, then check out our website or desktop app, where you can get all the best item and rune setups imported straight into your client. Using our app, you can also track summoner spells, see gold differences in games, you get matchup advice on every single champion, and compare and review your performances with our live stat tracker. Now Nasus could be a much stronger pick this patch, with buffs to his AD growth as well as his ease mana cost and armor reduction too. We aren't going to bump him up any tiers just yet because he is very matchup and draft specific, but in those games where he is a great and viable pick, he'll just be even better now. Pantheon gets some interesting changes here with some max HP damage, some resistances on his E, and then some random AP ratios too. To be honest, Pantheon's stats do look pretty average, but those that really know how to abuse him have been doing so for a while now. So with these buffs, he's only going to get better, and therefore we have bumped him up to the A tier. Camille has been an absolute machine in the top lane so far this split, and for the majority of season 2024 in general. Now she's had some nerfs to her Q's movement speed and her ultimate's damage, but to be honest, we just don't see these changes making as much difference as she needs. Camille has some crazy bursts with her Q, she's got great trading and laning and mobility, and her ultimate will still be an amazing tool to shut down those fed AD carries. So she's going to stay in the S tier this patch. Gnar hasn't really been that relevant for a while now, but has definitely been struggling more than usual recently, so he gets a buff to his AD growth and his Q's AD scaling. Singed gets some buffs to his ultimate cooldown and his Q's poison AP ratio. Mordekaiser gets more nerfs to his passive, but even more buffs in the jungle. Aurelia gets her health growth reduced after a very strong start to Split 2. K'Sante gets yet another round of tweaks, and Ornn can now make pretty much all legendary items into his upgraded items too. So let's have a look at the tier list, and in the S tier we have Akshan, Camille, Fiora, Gragas, Gwen, Aurelia, Kennen, Poppy, Sett, Skarner, Tryndamere and Zac. Yes, that is quite a few picks to choose from, and these are just super strong in the right matchups, which is pretty much what the top lane is all about. There's a mixture here of consistent blind pick champions like Gragas and Poppy, and then some more counter picking machines like Gwen, Kennen and Akshan. Skarner continues to maintain a very impressive success rate up here in the top lane at the moment, and as we mentioned already, despite her nerfs, we think Camille is here to stay. Well, now let's take a look at the jungle, and the champions affected here are Kha'Zix, Master Yi, Karthus, Mordekaiser and Taliyah. Karthus has definitely been a bit on the strong side so far this split with the addition of Blackfire Torch, and he's been having some unbelievable numbers in the jungle and the bot lane, and even a little bit in the mid lane too. He just packs a ridiculous amount of damage. He spikes earlier now and he still scales incredibly hard, so it was expected to see some nerfs. But don't get too excited because his Q's base damage is only going from 45 to 125 to 43 to 119, which probably isn't even going to scratch the surface. Taliyah has been another user and abuser of the Blackfire Torch, and generally she's just been a real force in both the jungle and the mid lane. This patch her damage per rock is being nerfed marginally, which again we don't feel like is enough to bring her out of the S tier. Kha'Zix unfortunately hasn't had the greatest time in this split so far, so this patch he gets some extra base damage on his Q, which could actually be just enough to really help him out. Master Yi is another jungler who's just been a bit pants recently, so this patch he gets some buffs to his health growth, armor growth, AD growth and attack speed growth too. We're going to have to wait and see how this one plays out. He's been below 50% win rate for the last few weeks, and let's see if these changes are enough to bring him back up into the A tier. So how do these jungle changes affect our tier list then? Well, in the S tier we have Karthus, Kindred, Nidalee, Nocturne, Rek'Sai, Skarner, Taliyah, Viego and Xin Zhao. Blackfire Torch has made the jungle very AP heavy right now, with Karthus, Taliyah, Brand and even Rumble and Morgana proving to be very viable picks here. with all of these choices having very rapid jungle clears, great ganks, and crazy scaling. Viego and Xin Zhao continue to be very popular in the jungle too, racking up a ton of games with amazing stats across the board. Nocturne makes a return to the S tier here after an impressive split 2 so far in the first few weeks, and Kha'Zix moves back up to the A tier with those buffs to his Q. Well, let's get into the mid lane then, and the champions changed here are pretty much just Hui, Aurelia and Taliyah. As we mentioned earlier, Aurelia got minor nerfs to her health growth, so she's going to stay in the S tier. Taliyah we've also covered in the jungle section, but seeing as she's just been so damn strong in both roles recently, she stays in the S tier where she belongs. Hui has always been a very scary pick at higher ranks in the right hands, but recently he's been more consistent and proving to be a top pick across the board. He has been super contested with a massive amount of games, and that's not really too surprising because he's very fun to play. This patch, Hui has had his QQ's max HP damage nerfed slightly and his QE's max AP ratio reduced too. Overall though, he still has a ton to offer and these nerfs are probably pretty expected, but also not too harsh. He's still probably going to be one-shotting carries from 3 screens away, wave clearing lanes in a matter of seconds, and dishing out some crazy AoE damage throughout games. So if you are having some good results with Hui this split so far, don't stop playing him anytime soon. On to the mid lane tier list then, and in the S tier we have Ahri, Akshan, Cassiopeia, Hui, Aurelia, Lux, Sylas, Taliyah, Twisted Fate and Vex. Ahri's going to keep her spot here despite dropping down a little bit recently, but when you look at just how popular and how consistent she is, it's hard to take her out of here. Lux makes a bit of a comeback here, as in the last few weeks with the changes to Luden's companion, she's really shot back up again with fantastic wave clear and huge burst damage. LeBlanc will stay in the B tier here, but in high elo she's really bounced back again, becoming much more popular again and very hard to beat in the lane phase. Speaking of high elo, Akali is also an S tier terror in those top ranks, but for the majority of players she remains a solid A tier pick. Yasuo and Yone continue to be pretty underwhelming so far in this ranked split, so let's see what Riot have in store for them in the next few patches. Okay, now let's have a look at the AD carries in the bot lane, which has been the main topic of Split 2 so far, with so much change happening here. Both the Collector and Infinity Edge are getting nerfed this patch, which does make sense because these two items have basically defined the meta so far. Infinity Edge will lose 10% of its crit damage and the Collector loses 3 lethality. Immortal Shield Bow also gets a nice buff to its shield, Essence Reaver costs 100 gold less, and Static Shiv gets a few buffs too. Caitlyn has genuinely been one of the best champions in the game this split so far, with some absolutely absurd damage, allowing her to basically one-shot enemy carries with one rapid fire cannon headshot in the late game. Her W and Q combos alongside those headshots are just dealing some ridiculous damage, so I don't think anyone will be surprised to see her in the patch notes. So what are they changing? Well, they're nerfing her W's bonus AD ratio and her ultimate's bonus AD ratio too, but they are buffing her attack speed ratio at the same time. Yes, these are mostly nerfs, however it's actually a small buff to her early game because now she'll have some more attack speed and you won't really be relying on your ultimate as much until the mid game onwards. The changes that are really going to make the difference for Caitlyn is the W's damage ratio as well as the nerfs to IE and Collector. But despite these changes, we do think she's going to continue to be one of the best and most contested AD carries in the game. Speaking of popular picks, Jinx is the most popular pick in the bot lane at every single rank with the highest win rates across the board. This week she's getting her AD per level nerfed. Now we really can't judge how much this will hurt her until we see it go live though. Therefore, due to how crazy Jinx has been recently, she's going to stay in the S tier for now. Draven was completely busted when Split 2 first hit live, and he was one of the main champions who got hit with the initial hotfix nerfs a day after the patch. However, he went from 53% win rate all the way down to 46% after these nerfs, and it has taken a while for him to balance back out again over the last few weeks. Draven is still winning a ton of games in high elo though, as those OTPs are still stomping lanes and farming LP. This patch, his Adoration passive stacks lost on death have been buffed from 75% down to 50%, and his base gold per kill also went up too. These buffs aren't going to change any of his laning or damage or anything like that, but it does mean he'll be harder to punish and probably means he will get stronger more consistently. We're going to keep Draven in the A tier here and in the S tier in high elo. So let's see how the AD carry tier list is shaping up. And in the S tier we have Ashe, Caitlyn, Jhin, Jinx and Karthus. Many AD carries will be affected by the Collector and Infinity Edge nerfs like Samira, Aphelios, Jhin and Caitlyn, but it all depends on how these items still perform. We think the meta will still revolve around Infinity Edge, and those that use Collector have plenty of alternatives, like Jhin can just rush IE into Rapid Fire and Lord Doms, and we'll probably see some more of the other lethality item opportunity. Speaking of this item, Corki has been massively on the rise with that lethality into crit build based around Hail of Blades and maxing his E, which deals some pretty bonkers early game damage, but he also scales really hard too. Hail of Blades is one rune we expect to get nerfed again soon. The bot lane picks like Varus alongside Ashe support, and then Kalista and Corki, they're all winning a lot of lanes at the moment in high elo. So now let's finish off with those supports, and the champions being affected here are simply just Lulu and Nami. The meta has been heavily based around engaging tanky or hook supports in the last few weeks, so enchanters have taken a bit of a step back. Lulu has still been a great A tier pick in the right games though, and now she's getting her ultimate's knock-up duration up from 0.75 seconds to 1 second, and the cooldown is being lowered too, with 20 seconds off at just rank 1. This isn't going to make Lulu suddenly perma-blind pick auto-lock in every single game, but it just means in those games where she's the perfect fit, she'll be even harder to beat. Nami has been a really consistent A-tier pick too, especially with certain synergies like Lucian, Corki and even Brand. This patch is getting some buffs to her base AD, less mana late game on her W, and a flat buff to her ultimate slow at early levels. She's been in a pretty good spot for a while now, so these buffs will just improve that further. She's one of those champions that just has everything you need from your support: CC, peels, buffs, boosts and protection, so if you are looking for a new main support champion to play, give Nami another go. Okay, now let's have a look at the support tier list then for patch 14.11. And in the S tier we have Blitzcrank, Braum, Janna, Leona, Nautilus, Pyke, Rakan, Rell and Thresh. As we have mentioned already, the meta here revolves around engaging aggressive tanky supports who can dictate games with their 2v2s, their roaming, and their ability to set up fights. Nautilus has probably been one of the most popular and one of the most impressive supports in the game so far in Split 2 across every single rank. Braum and Leona have quietly climbed up into very strong contested picks as well, and Braum is just such a great counter to so many different matchups. Pyke is still super scary in the right hands, but definitely takes some more practice than some others, and Janna is still doing the things Janna does best, which is winning solo queue games. So there we have it, that wraps up all the changes in patch 14.11 and how they affect our tier list. Don't forget to click the link in the description to head to our tier list on our website so you can check it all out in full for yourselves. Thanks for watching guys, good luck in your solo queue adventures, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.